I'd like to begin today, and may I say, both of you look amazing, but I'm wondering if you smell amazing right now.
No, I'm not wearing anything because I was going to be doing a bit of blending later tonight.
Chavalia, you?
I spritzed on just a brand that I came across called Who is Elijah, I believe. Um, and it is Nomad. Has kind of a
She broke.
BR540 DNA, but
She
yeah.
broke it. I was also gonna say I have nothing on. I know Teddy's in the same boat. Like whenever you're working on something as a perfumer, you tend to not wear anything.
hmm
Uh, Chavalia might have just sprayed something on, but I know she's under the same guise most of the time.
Yes.
We don't normally wear fragrance as perfumers. We don't get to enjoy the luxury that a lot of people that are in our space get to enjoy because we're constantly working on the next thing and we're trying to test the fragrances that we have created currently. But if you guys haven't already done so, please make sure to follow both of these individuals. Chavalia has a business page called Pink Mahoghany on here. And she also has a brand herself based out of Texas. Teddy the Perfumer is also going to be launching a brand. Do you have a date, estimated time of arrival for us, Teddy?
Doing a soft launch in about 6 to 8 weeks, and then bottles hopefully by June. That's the goal. But I'm doing it as a passion project, so if I get a little delayed, I'll be okay. I figure it'll just build anticipation, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Well, you guys heard it here first. Teddy's going to be doing something by this summer, by June. He should have bottles and everything should be ready to go. Might be a little late though. We're not gonna be upset if you take some time to balance out and tweak the fragrance and get it perfect.
I'm hoping all my suppliers come together with my first orders, and it's looking good so far, but you never know, right?
Alrighty, so we're gonna get started on tonight's live. Can I get you to introduce yourself, Teddy? Or sorry, that how terrible of me. Ladies first, can we get Chavalia to introduce herself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chevalier, and I am the perfumer and owner for Pink Mahoghany Fragrances. As Trill said, a Texas-based niche perfumery. I'm one of, I don't want to say a handful, but a few women perfumers, and even less than that in the South. So I'm excited to be here.
Teddy?
Well, my name is Teddy Haugen. I'm also a perfumer, but definitely a lot less established than these two folks. For now, everyone's just trusting that I actually do it because I'm posting videos on TikTok and people seem to be enjoying it. And my hope here is to be able to launch my own house. It'll be called TeddyThePerfumer, very original, and going
I
with
like
three
it.
fragrances, and hopefully people enjoy what I put out there, because sometimes you got to just release into the world and hope for the best, right?
Absolutely. And for those of you who may not know me, who are coming from the other audiences, my name is Trill Noel. I am the owner and CEO of Xarmony Perfumes. I started doing perfumery back in 2019. This is going to be my 6th year in perfumery. There's a tragedy that befell my family, and we lost everything in 2021. I started and launched Xarmony a few months after that. With the money the fragrance community had gathered together to donate to my family, I bought some of the ingredients I needed, and I established my website and launched the business so we could have income to rebuild our lives. In that time frame between then and now, within 18 months, I had scaled Xarmony to $100,000 based off of just skill, talent, and gumption, for a lack of a better word. But we fought tooth and nail to get where we are today. And the brand has established an empire behind itself. I know there's a few members of the empire in the chat. Thank y'all for being here tonight. If you are here, let us know. We really appreciate it, everyone. Now, with that being said, we have a wonderful live planned for you tonight. The main purpose of this live is for us as a community of perfumers and the people enjoying the work done by artisans like ourselves in this room, to be able to network, connect, and grow and work together. I believe each one of us have seen it firsthand. Even without Teddy having a business, I know he's seen what it's like for an independent perfumer to do anything. Just for us to get our fragrances on a website like Fragrantica could be an impossible, daunting task. And going even further than that, just getting someone to like let us put our fragrances in their stores could be an impossible, daunting task. So it's kind of hard for us to establish ourselves sometimes whenever it takes us a lot more time and effort to do a fragrance than it does, say, a multi-billion-dollar company. You know, it could take us a year to make one fragrance, and they could do it in like 2 weeks and then have 20,000 bottles of it ready to go. So with that in mind, we're going to dive into the first things that we want to talk about tonight. And that's going to be our favorite parts of perfumery. This is going to be an educational section for you guys in the audience. If you'd like to take notes, please feel free to do so. We're going to lead with Chavalia, Chevalier. I believe she would like to talk about tinctures, maybe solvents, or enfleurage, something along that process. This is an extraction process of perfumery, which is a method that is used to get the fragrant compounds and materials that we put in our fragrances. So take the floor and give us some inspiration, some education on the matter.
Okay. Creating accords using materials that I would say are unique in nature has become my specialty, not on purpose, but kind of, I know I don't want to say an accident because I don't believe in accidents as far as creativity is concerned. But over the 20 years that I have been in business with Pink Mahoghany, I've learned that this is kind of my forte, is to create tinctures. And it really happened when I was looking for a particular material. I was not able to find this material. It was chili pepper. And I couldn't find, like chili pepper, essential oil, or extract or anything. So I basically went to the grocer, my local grocer, and got some organic chili peppers and tinctured them for about, I would say the minimum 30 days. But I still have the tincture, and this was, I believe, 2020, so 2020. And I use organic alcohol. So basically, I like to keep things simple. So I purchased maybe like a half a pound of chili peppers, put them inside of, I have an amber glass bottle here. It has something in it, but I use an amber glass bottle. I don't use anything that is clear, just for the sake of preserving the actual liquid to give it time to mature and macerate. So I will weigh out the materials and write everything down, because that is one thing that I learned early on is usually when you don't write something down, that's when it turns out to be your best blend or your best tincture or your best accord, whatever. And then you don't have anything to reference it, because in your mind you may be thinking, oh, I'm just playing around, or I'm just messing around, or I'm just playing with materials, or just doing trials. I don't think this is really going to result in anything. And that's when you usually have what you're looking for. So with this chili pepper, I put it in there and I put the alcohol in there, and then I literally just let it sit. I don't touch it. I may open it from week to week just to see how strong it is before I actually use it. And I wasn't using this for perfumery. I was using it for a room spray, and it was a trial room spray. It wasn't anything to be sold. I'm not even selling it right now, perhaps in the future. But this was just for me to learn about chili pepper, to learn more about the properties of it. What does it make me feel like? Does it burn the eyes when you spray it as it does if you consume it? So it's a way for me to connect with different materials in different forms. And like I said, I wasn't able to find this particular material. So I wanted to try my hand at tincturing it myself, putting it in organic alcohol, and then seeing what came from that.
Well, thank you so much. Did you enjoy that process more back then than you do now? Or do you feel like it's something that you use a lot less now?
I definitely enjoy it more so now, because, when you practice something more, then you get better at it. So I was just, like I said, trying my hand at chili pepper. Now I've tinctured vanilla beans from different countries, Indonesia, Madagascar.
That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff.
So I like to, I think it provides it's kind of my signature. if you will, as opposed to using, like I said, ready-made materials or just the essential oils or absolutes. It gives a different aroma profile than I would say the heavier resins or the thicker materials. Yeah.
Thank you. So in my journey, or before I even get into that, would you say you're the chili pepper woman then? Is there an ingredient that you have that we should know you for?
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure now you could probably find something. I've not searched, but I'm sure you could probably find chili pepper. But if someone, like if a client said, "Hey, I want a specific chili pepper in my fragrance," or, then I
Yes.
could probably use that tincture for them, and it would have a unique profile, odor profile for them.
There's a member in the live tonight that had me looking up rice ingredients the other day, and I just realized that one of the easiest ways to make rice ingredients is to tincture it. You can just tincture the smell of jasmine and use it as the solvent that you put your fragrance in. Now we're going to move on into Teddy. Teddy, can you let us know your answer?
My favorite ingredient to work with?
Oh, no, no, no. An area of perfumery that you'd like to expound upon.
Okay. I mean, I think one thing I get asked a lot about is how to get into perfumery, how to like learn materials, like what's the first step? And the reality is it's a lot easier than you really think it is, because to get good at perfumery, you have to start training your nose. And
Correct.
it's really not that different from cooking. But the big difference is that with cooking, like
Bingo.
you've learned about it your whole life, like you've had to taste things and you've been asked, like, how does this taste? And even if you don't know how to cook, like you've probably seen it done and you know what a carrot tastes like you have a foundational knowledge and you've been building on it. And so to really start even just becoming a better collector or considering learning perfumery, you just got to do some nose training, right? And there's two ways to do it. One of them is free and easy. One of them costs a little money and you don't need to overthink it the way that I did when I first started. And the first one for nose training is to literally just smell stuff. Like it's that simple, right?
Yes.
Like go to your spice cabinet, go to the black pepper. And what I tell people is say, you have to smell it for the first time, right? Because we're trained to assess things visually, through art, and we're trained to like learn about music and assess music, but nobody ever says, sit down and really smell the pepper, really smell the carrot, really and when you start to actually approach smelling with intention, you'd be amazed how quickly your nose will develop and you'll start to find connections between smells. Like maybe there's some citrusy facets in certain spices, right? And from there, like you can actually do quite a lot. Like literally when you're out on your walk in your neighborhood, like if you see a flower, like some blooming jasmine, smell it. What does it smell like? What do you notice in it? Does it smell similar to a rose that you smelled at some point? Because most flowers have a lot of overlapping aroma chemicals, right?
Yes.
And then the second part is maybe you want to take a step into actually learning some perfumery materials. And if you go online, there's people just agonizing over what to buy first. Oh my God, what am I going to buy? What am I going to buy? And the reality is, if you're going to be serious about nose training, your first order is going to be just that. It's going to be your first order. And then you'll
Correct.
go through those materials and then you'll have a second order and then a third order, right? Like, because there's so many ingredients that you can learn to smell that you're never going to just buy this all encompassing perfect set in your first go around. And you don't have to spend like $500. You can spend $25, $50 and get a handful of aroma chemicals to start. And then what I'll say is, and I'm actually going to post a video on this soon, I just haven't got around to filming it, is the only thing you really got to watch out for is that when you buy raw, like real perfumery ingredients, you really shouldn't be just smelling them pure when you first get them, because until you have some knowledge, like some of them are actually so strong they can hurt your nose, but also they're not going to smell quite the same as they would be like in a finished alcohol-based fragrance. And people then agonize, right. Oh my gosh, how do I dilute them? They go through all these fits. It's really not that complicated. If you're not doing perfumery, you can just literally take some Perfumer's alcohol or Everclear, 10 drops of that, 1 drop of your ingredient, and you've got a roughly 10% dilution that you can smell train with, right?
I'm gonna chime in on that one. Make sure that your Everclear is over 150 proof. Pretty much anything under that won't work at all.
It's got to be like real Everclear, not like some lower Yeah. And don't get the Everclear unless you really have to. You really should be getting like SDA 40B Perfumers
Yes.
alcohol, 200 proof, maybe 190.
So the part of perfumery that attracted me the most comes from my background in engineering. I have a master's degree in digital engineering. I've been in computer science. I've worked with computing and just anything online. I could remake the whole movie Spider-Man literally by myself. I could even create 3D models to replace all of the actors if I needed. I trained in that all of my life. But then somehow I found myself here during the pandemic. I was trapped inside of my home with my peppermint diffuser, working 5 jobs from my home. I was also cleaning the apartment complex that I lived in and cleaning carpets for people on the side as well. Teaching music lessons. I designed websites, and I had a digital anonymous counseling job that I was doing as well. So that was my background before perfumery. And in that time frame, I started enjoying peppermint and just the properties that it made me feel being around it. It made it to where that hecticness that I was living in became a lot more calm. And during COVID, peppermint was a very prominent thing for people to keep around. The importance of that ingredient finally showed itself to our society. Every single person was picking it up to figure out if they could still smell something, which is a testament to its power as an ingredient. However, the industry doesn't use it. It's like in no fragrances ever. It's barely in anything ever. You might be able to find a list of 20 fragrances that have peppermint. 20 out of 10 billion. That's not that big of a deal. If you look up bergamot, you'll find it everywhere. But whenever we go into that side, you start digging into the chemistry, and the engineer in me became excited. Once I started learning about constituents and that a single essential oil can contain 200 different constituents, my mind was blown. Because I was like, okay, so then what does peppermint oil contain in it? Why do I like this so much? So then I looked at all of the constituents that exist inside of peppermint oil. And then I ordered all of the constituents that I could order so that I could recreate my own peppermint using the synthetic ingredients that exist naturally in peppermint. So like inside of peppermint, you have isoborneol, you have labdanum, you have thymol, you have menthol, you have menthone, beta pinene and alpha pinene. I have all of those on the shelf behind me. So I can literally make my own peppermint. I don't want to say that we're playing at God here, but we get to recreate some of the building blocks of the olfactive art. And I thought that was amazing. And so then I really dug deeper into the chemistry side of it. Then I started learning about the molecular families that exist in perfumery. And even what Teddy was saying earlier, with Perfumer's alcohol, it's basically the same thing as grain alcohol, but they've added denatonium benzoate to it, which is also known as Bitrex, or is it Butyrex? Which one is it? Do you know, Teddy?
I think it's Bitrex because it tastes bitter.
Yeah, I think it's Bitrex. The thing about it is you run into this section of the law whenever you get into making perfumery. Because it's an alcohol, you have to make it to where it's not drinkable in any way for it to be able to be something that you can put on the market without having to get the law involved, because you're only allowed to do so much due to prohibition laws that still exist, which is crazy. I didn't know about all that when I got in this space.
Yeah, I think you can do 6 gallons per year without a TTB license.
Yep, it's 5, man. It's 5.
It's 5.
It's 5 gallons per year without a TTB license. So like, yeah. But if your fragrance contains Bitrex or a denaturant, it's denatured alcohol, it doesn't fall under that umbrella anymore because it's not alcohol. It's not drinkable. That's literally what they would say in court. Just because you add this thing that makes it taste funny, makes it to where it's no longer a drink.
And I can attest to that. This was a while ago. I was like, I forget what happened, but I forgot to have like a place to do some like just waste containment, and I like did a quick dilution for something random, and I just sort of squirted the extra alcohol into like a coffee mug I had there, and then like 30 minutes later, I just like without thinking like grabbed the coffee mug and like took a little sip, and I'll tell you, it is It's a very strong flavor.
Oh, don't,
I didn't
guys,
swallow it
don't,
because my God, I almost like yacked everywhere. So yeah,
don't
that's
take his
definitely put in
advice.
there.
Don't do that.
Do not do that. So I have like a strict no like mugs near me when I'm perfuming because I get in like the flow and I'm like, here's a mug.
I have to say I am very much the same. I didn't do what you did, but I had a couple bottles next to me whenever I first began, and I was just mixing things, right? One of them wasn't a perfume that I was working on. It was actually like the spray for my keyboard for my computer. And I happen to have it in the same exact type of bottle. Like I ordered this is back when I began. I had plastic spray bottles, right? And I had a spray that I had made for my keyboard. I didn't pay attention to the labels. And I take one of the fragrance mixtures that I was working on. It was a terrible one with seaweed. It was a very, very much a failed marine experiment that
Bold choice.
you guys will never hear about again. Sprayed it all over my computer's keyboard. So for the next few months, I was just smelling like a fish tank every time I was on the computer. Cause there was no way for me to like go in and, you know, take every key off and get the smell out of there without like I tried. So yeah, be very careful, when you begin, to make sure that you don't have any of your ingredients getting mixed together or that you label every single thing you do. Trust me when I say that. The worst thing you could do is have the wrong dilution of something like Cypriol. That is an ingredient that sometimes is used to make oud. Cypriol is like one of the strongest things I've ever encountered. If you put a 0.5% versus a 5% by accident, your whole fragrance is trash now. You're gonna have to throw it. Now I know we've all gone through trials and tribulations with that, but I'd like to go on to the next section of our live where we're gonna let the panelists talk about their favorite ingredients. We're gonna go in with Teddy. Teddy, what is your favorite ingredient to work with, or one that you just love the smell of?
I think oddly enough, so there's two of them, and they're sort of for different reasons. So I used to be a patchouli hater, but since really, after getting into perfumery, it's become one of my favorite ingredients because most people, when they think of patchouli, they think of like stanky, but there are so many beautiful different types of patchouli distillations, like patchouli fractions, patchouli absolute, then even things like clearwood, patchoulol, and just it's such a versatile,
love clearwood,
beautiful material. I think patchouli fraction B from Robertet is one of my favorites. It's just it's beautiful, it's earthy, it's a little chocolatey, and so I think that's one of my favorite like just ingredient smells. And then probably my favorite material to work with, or that I end up using probably more than I should, is Cetilox. I love Cetilox. Cetilox is just magic.
I have that arriving.
Beautiful Abraxan material. Like
I have that arriving in 2 days.
Oh,
it's going to be the first time that I get my nose on it. I feel terrible, but I have an entire brand with 40 fragrances, and I haven't used that ingredient once yet.
You're going to have Cetilox X Mint pretty soon. So folks in the live, I got a pro tip for you. If any of you are dabbling in some making your own stuff, one of the nicest things you can make for like a summer fragrance is just get like Perfumer's alcohol, do like a 5% dilution of Cetilox in that thing, and you will have a nuclear, amazing smelling fragrance. It's like Molecule 2, but like better.
Yes. Now here's a secret that we can drop as well. Molecule 01 is not an ISOE super fragrance.
It is not.
It doesn't use ISOE super. It uses something in the same family, a derivative or like a cousin, or maybe a stereo. Well, it's not really a stereo.
It's ISO gamma super. It has a different proportion of the isomers in it than ISOE super.
Yes. And on what Teddy said a second ago, he was talking about 100% Cetilox. You have to bring it down to a 5% dilution.
Yeah, at least
Cetilox,
5% strong stuff.
Now, it's sold in diluted form in some places. Make sure that's not what you do if you take that advice. He's talking about it at 100%.
Yeah,
this was something
in powdered form otherwise.
Yes. This is something that can be a little
dust yourself with it. That's not a good idea.
Oh, yeah. Dear God. Oh, yeah. And also, whenever you're dealing with powder, because some materials that we order in powder form, like this right here, this is ethyl maltol crystals. If I open this, it's just a white powder basically, but it's a bunch of crushed crystals or, finely dissolved.
Let's see, there's
Yes.
Cetalox. By the way, even from here, holy crap, it smells really good. Cetalox. It's beautiful, beautiful thing.
Now, whenever you're working with these ingredients and you're an amateur, you're just getting started and you have no idea about the powers or the strength of these things, I recommend that you wear a mask whenever you're messing with them, because if you happen to do anything where it's flying all over your face, getting in your nose, you could run into some very, very terrible accidents. And we wouldn't want that with anyone. So I always recommend to people that are getting started that they try to avoid the powders to begin with. And then get into that a little later, because pretty much every ingredient that is in a powder form, you can find it pre-diluted already in benzoate or is it TEC? Triethyl citrate? Is it citrate?
Citrate, I think.
Yes. And the other one was isopropyl myristrate. So, but with that in mind, Chavalia, I keep saying it wrong. Can you let us know your favorite ingredients to work with or things that you really love?
Much like Teddy, I avoided, like he was speaking about, not really working with the material at first, patchouli. Mine was rose until I got my nose on Damascus Delta. And when I smelled that, it gave me rose, but it also gave me tobacco. It also gave me some woods. It's so complex, and it brings, to me, it brings like almost we were talking about alcohol, but the actual drinkable alcohol. It brings like a wine quality to my nose, and it's very diffusive, and it's like I said, it's so complex. And I use it. I have it in one of my top sellers called Sexuality. And though Sexuality does not have any rose, it has strawberry, but the Damascus Delta actually helps to create a more complex strawberry so that it's not juvenile on the skin. It's still a fruity fragrance, but it's a more mature fruit. And it has kind of gotten me back into working with rose, like slowly but surely. For some reason, I guess because of the types of rose that maybe I had in like the small, I'm looking at these, like my 4 mLs right here. I was like, I just don't like it. But combined with the Damascus Delta, I'm growing to really appreciate rose. And it's also allowing me to use eugenol, go down that rabbit hole, even geraniol, even though it's not exactly the same, but opening my palette up again to say, hey, I wonder what the Damascus Delta would smell like combined with this particular material, and then working with rose again. So definitely that's what I'm loving working with right now.
Thank you. This is going to be crazy to you guys, or at least I think it's crazy, but my answer is literally both of yours combined. Black currant, pepper, and mint family, like all mints. Patchouli is a mint. For anyone in the live, patchouli is not a wood, it's a mint. When I joined the community, tons of people were telling me that patchouli is like a wood, and they were saying like I like woody fragrances like cedar and patchouli, and I was like, what? Patchouli is part of the mint family with basil, oregano, rosemary, thyme, sage, lemon balm, marjoram, eucalyptus. It's a huge family. Lavender is also a mint. So if anyone ever says they don't like mint, ask them if they like lavender. I've always brought this up.
Spike lavender and like any kind of mint, basil, and then also patchouli. They have a very similar sort of camphoraceous link.
Now camphor is a wood and it's not a mint, which is crazy.
Sort of that mentholated smell almost, right? A lot of patchouli.
Yes, and it has this like medicinal menthol smell to it. And I was like, how is this not related to mint? Like I looked at the constituents for camphor and I'm like, how is it doing this? Now, that being said, I also fell in love recently. Well, when I made Yasuke, there's a fragrance in my brand called Yasuke. This is him right here. This fragrance was the first one where I did something like centered around black currant. I ran into sulfuric ingredients, which is like black currant, beta damascene, delta damascene, your damascenes. black currant itself is sulfuric, just like pumpkin, just like a lot of other fruits out there. They're known as sulfuric. Don't be confused with like methane gas. They're not the same things. And I kind of fell in love with that concept of something that's like fruity and beautiful, but also like deeply profound and off-putting at the same time. But what Chavalia said earlier, she said something about the Damascone smelled boozy-like. And I just finished making Vanilla X rum, and I learned from a study done at Harvard. Somebody's thesis was literally about wine and rum. And I read this like 200-page thesis thing that they typed. They were talking about beta Damascone in a part of it. It appeared in the paper, and I was like, so that's in wine. It's in booze. It's in what we drink. So what you said earlier is spot on to the science of it. And like, I just truly fell in love with those things. And I'm in the future hoping to make a fragrance that combines those two new, my original passion with my new passion. For anybody that's been following Xarmony, like the last 10 fragrances I've done probably had black currant or something like blackberry or blueberry, something along those lines, because I can't get enough of this stuff now. But yeah, mint has been my saving grace since the beginning. I just think it's a widely ignored part of perfumery, and it's so beautiful, and it allows us to create so many different things. But no one's doing any research with it. No one's moving forward with it. It's kind of widely ignored because most of the big brands out there think people will say, oh, well, this smells like toothpaste, or, oh, it reminds me of bubble gum. And their concept is always, I want something that makes you think of gold. I want you to think of money. I want you to think of wealth. And it's like, well, I want to think of art. And this makes me feel like I'm standing on a block of ice. I like that feeling. You know, like this puts me in the middle of Alaska. So that was the direction that I went with my loves and my joys. We had a few questions earlier. I'll reference that one. We'll give that one to the first one to Teddy. What gives patchouli its chocolate-like scent or smell? If you wouldn't mind covering that.
Actually, I don't know what specific aroma chemical in it gives it that chocolatey feel, but I do know that when you're often getting a lot of chocolatiness from a patchouli, it's because it's been combined with some kind of vanilla materials. So if you have like a really rich, not super camphoraceous patchouli, like patchouli absolute, patchouli fraction, and you put even just a tiny bit of like vanillin and ethyl vanillin in there, you'll immediately get like a very strong chocolate feel, because chocolate is mostly vanilla. Like the when you look at like a chocolate accord, the core parts of it are like vanillin and ethyl vanillin. There's a bunch of like sort of like buttery materials and nutty like pyrazine materials in there too. So when you get really chocolatey patchouli, it's almost certainly because it's been combined with vanilla materials.
To our mods, people ask about things that are not artisan perfumery or what we're doing tonight. Please mute or remove their comments if possible. Thank you so much. But yeah, I don't have an exact answer for that either. I know a lot of the mint family has some dankness to it, which is related to a plant that we can't name fully called the canna plant.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg likes it.
The Snoop Dogg, we'll just call it the Snoop Dogg mint.
Yeah, that's right.
Patchouli is close to being a Snoop Dogg mint. There's also some other ones that fall into that lane, but it may be related to Poulagon, or I think it might be called myrcene, Myrcene, myrcene or myrcene. That could be it. I'm not positive. I've never really looked into what makes patchouli smell chocolate. But we also had another question, Chavalia. Can you answer this one for us? Where should someone go, or what flavor producers do you know of that they could get their ingredients from? Trusted names in the field.
Flavor producers?
Yes. As in like the Firmenich, Givaudan.
Well, we know. Well, I won't get into to those, but I I really love Perfumer's Apprentice. I
Yes.
actually do work with flavor materials. That is kind of one of my, I don't want to say a trade secret, but that is part of the process of how I'm able to make things so realistic. Is I actually do work with flavor materials. I try not to branch out to too many different suppliers because the DNA of my brand is founded on a small group. So, but I would definitely say Perfumer's Apprentice. I started working with them. I want to say the first time I ever purchased from them was around probably 2007, 2008. And I've still been working with them to date. So I would say definitely Perfumer's Apprentice. The price point is going to be uh, pretty attractive. So if you are just getting started and you kind of want to just try your hand at materials and flavor materials as well, just to get an idea of the differences in the flavor materials as opposed to an equivalent in fragrance oil form or in aroma chemical form.
Yes. So as you said, Perfumer's Apprentices is one that I would also recommend. I've been working with them since I entered this space. They're not my only supplier, but they're my favorite supplier. I have had zero issues with anything from them so far. Like not even a single thing has been wrong with anything I've ordered. There was one bottle that had a dent on it. That was about it. You know, like I'm not gonna hound them for that tiny little thing. But all of my oils have been pretty nice, strong, powerful, the same consistency every time. We did have a mishap happen recently, but that might have been something that happened due to my end. Maybe I might have not closed my bottle the correct way. But when I reached out to them, they replaced it and no problems. And they're very helpful. You can actually call Perfumer's Apprentice and speak with them on the phone. They'll talk you through things. They even have someone who will let you know, like, if this is something that, you know, you need to be very careful using. Because I had ordered an ingredient that said it was banned in California. And so I called them and I'm like, hey, why are you guys selling this? And they're saying, oh, it's only banned in one state. The rest of the United States, it's okay to use. But I was like, yeah, but why is it banned in that one state? And they started telling me everything. And I was like, I'm going to avoid it. Thank you for the information. So they're well informed about everything that they have in their arsenal, which is amazing. They're not just selling you some chemicals that they ordered and picked up without knowing everything about it. Now, the main flavor producers that I was going to recommend are Givaudan, Firmenich, Robertet, Takasago, and there was one more. Oh, IFF. IFF is another. All of the names that I just mentioned have demo formulas on their website, and they produce the molecules and the synthetics that we use. Now, I would like to go into the next section of our live where we dispel some myths.
Before we go on, I'll add a couple to those suppliers as
Yes,
well.
please. I don't have a full list.
Yeah, I can't stress enough how much I agree that Perfumer's Apprentice is amazing. Like I've corresponded with Travis McIntosh there, and they're just super helpful. So don't have any reservations there. A Perfumer supply house is really great. Their lead times can be a little long, but they have a lot of stuff that isn't at Perfumer's Apprentice is at Perfumer Supply House. Some people have recommended creating perfumes. I have ordered from them. I've just heard a lot, just FYI, I've heard a lot of people report that there may be some issues with like the control and how long their materials are stored. So just, buy with caution. And then folks, you can go to my profile after the live, and I have a guide at the top because I get asked this question a lot. And so in my free Perfumery resources guide, I just collected links to stuff that I use. And I've listed a bunch of suppliers and also ones that are in Europe, like Pell Wall is in the UK. There's a couple that are like in Netherlands. And then there's also like Freighter Works in New Zealand. So there's a bunch of suppliers listed in my guide that you can check out. And also most of these suppliers will ship internationally as well. So you don't have to only, like if you're in Europe, you can order from Perfumer's Apprentice. And if you're here, you can order from Pell Wall in the UK. So
now, on that note, if you do order something and it's from a supplier that's not in the same country as you want to make sure that you're getting a large enough order for it to be worth it. Because you are going to have to pay shipping and possibly hazmat fees. But those fees, like the hazmat fee is not going to increase just because you have a larger amount of stuff coming in. At least to my knowledge. That could be different with every supplier, every shipper. But I wouldn't order like a small amount. I'm talking about like over $2,000 if you're going to get something from overseas, or at least over 500. Anything under 500, I would say to try to find it locally.
And I mean, just check the supplier too. Like, don't order overseas if you got it locally, but some of them, they'll have like flat shipping. It just depends on what you're ordering. Just check with the supplier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Teddy did bring up a great point, which I'd like to elaborate on. He did make a comprehensive guide in his bio. So if you haven't followed Teddy, please do. And it talks about some of the ins and outs of perfumery. Xarmony has also been designing a course, which we're going to be offering in the near future. That is a Perfumery 101. And it'll get you to the point where we can move into our next section, which we'll probably be launching next year, where we actually teach you pretty much everything there is to know about perfumery itself. Now, I'm just going to do this on the live. I've spoken to Teddy about it, but Chavalia, would you be interested in offering a chapter into the courses that I'm designing? This would just be something that you give your input, and we give you credit, and we basically affiliate you with the guide so that people that check it out can see your name and your work and try out your fragrances as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That would be a lovely thing to have. And Teddy, we've spoken about this in the past. We're going to have a chapter from Teddy in there as well. So now we're going to move into the next section, which is future plans and dreams. So if I were to ask all of you your future plans and dreams, this one is just going to be an open discussion. So we're going to just have this like a general sip and sniff chat. Where do you want your business, your brand, your hobby, your love, your passion to go? What is your dream of the work that you are creating right now?
I'll let you go first unless you.
I knew you were going to do that, Teddy.
I've been talking a lot, but I can go if you want me to. You let me know.
No, I'll go ahead. I have several. I journal a lot, and just as a way for me to reflect from quarter to quarter or year to year to see if I have been able to accomplish what I envisioned for that particular time frame. One of the things that I am already doing but would like to continue doing is helping other brands to launch and basically holding their hand through the process. I will say, for those of you that are watching, I'm technical, but because I am so right-brained, creative-wise, there are a lot of technicalities that I look at as a reference, but I just create and then I look at the reference later. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So that's one reason why I've been quiet. I am actually learning as well, and I don't ever think that I have arrived. I don't care how long I've been in business. There's always something to learn because we all have different takes and different ways that we approach perfumery. So I just wanted to put that out there. But I want to continue helping other brands to learn about the business, all the way from conception or their idea to materialization and learning about, okay, what is the SDS? How do I apply that? What is this material? Just asking the questions that they may feel like are trivial and just being that bridge. So helping other brands to continue to launch in various mediums, not just perfumery, pretty much wherever scent would be desired, whether it's a body butter, a candle, a room spray. I work with essential oils as well. So if it is a diffuser blend that someone is seeking, I just want to be able to provide the knowledge to another creative, to someone else who thinks like I do, and they need somebody that's going to be able to break it down and kind of have that balance between technicality and the creativity aspect. So helping other brands.
I am all for that. I'm happy that you're doing that. I feel like all of us have that same drive behind us as well to, make the space of what we do larger. Because I know I've encountered quite a few brands before, like when I first started, and I was like, okay, look, I'm doing perfumery. I want to befriend all of you. Like, you're a perfumer, awesome, cool. What molecules do you work with? What's your favorite? Like the things that we're talking about tonight, I couldn't have this conversation with any of the brands that I talked to. Why? Because none of them were doing this. There's a ton of brands out there that will do what I call Amazon fragrances or Alibaba fragrances, or they'll order what's called a fragrance oil, which is what you use to make candles. And then they'll put that in their fragrances and call that a perfume.
Oh yeah, while doing all my bottle sourcing and cap sourcing, I found a lot of those suppliers on Alibaba, and it's real cheap.
Correct.
It's real easy to get that stuff, man. I'll tell you. They'll send you free samples, send you samples, pay like $25, $50 FedEx shipping.
Yep. And there's a ton of people that make that their business, and then someone out there will buy something from them and be like, yeah, I bought something from like this indie house, and I'm never trying indie houses again. And I'm like, well, did you buy something from a verified, like, in your face perfumer? Have you seen them actually make those things? You know, like I make my fragrances live almost every single night. I'm on a live stream every single night, but sometimes I'm not perfuming. Sometimes I'm just talking. But I'm confident enough in what I'm doing and my understanding of the craft and the art to do that. Like, this is my job. This is my career. I bet my life on this. Like I said, we built this out of a tragedy. My life was literally on the line. But I had that much faith and confidence in what I had learned and all the studying that I had done about perfumery up until that point. I can't say the same for a lot of different businesses that I've encountered out there, especially whenever one comes out and they're like, you know, it's one person, but they have 100 fragrances and they're releasing a new one every week. There's no way.
Well,
there's no way.
Remember, fragrance is big business, right? So let's talk about, you know, hey, I feel like I try not to do a lot of hate on my TikTok, but like Parfums de Marly comes up a lot. And I mean, Parfums de Marly, just an Initio, they're basically the same company, by the way, were acquired in a $700 million transaction not that long ago, because I mean, Parfums de Marly is doing literally that on a larger scale. They're mostly cloning already successful releases, or they're doing very derivative, very safe releases in kind of fancy bro packaging. They're charging you $350 to $400 a bottle. And, you know, I mean, props to them. It's a very effective business strategy. You copy other people's work, you put a new brand on it, and then you laugh all the way to the bank when you get a majority stake acquisition for $700 million, right? So it's
exactly,
it's a real thing, man.
Now, something that I would like to warn both of you about, which recently happened, and I think it's still happening too. Was it you, Pink Mahoghany? I'm not going to say the name of it, but the people that have your fragrance, they have a fragrance that has her name and her business on their website.
Is it that one that has been on social media a lot that I just...
The one that's like copying everybody?
They've since taken it down. They received a nice love letter from my business manager. So
apparently the people behind that are like, it's several, there's several companies into a series of scams, basically. So
yes. And this is the company that many of you friends that you know, influencers that you follow, that company made fragrances for them. Like whenever you see your influencer friend who has quite a lot of followers suddenly have a fragrance of their own, and they put it in the link in the bio and they say, go buy my fragrance. We got a fragrance, the brand, and they're excited and happy about it. But they don't know anything about what's going on behind the scenes and how those brands are also ripping off actual fragrance artists like Chavalia here. They haven't done it to Xarmony yet. And if I see it, obviously I'm going to take care of it. But there's nothing that's going to stop them from doing that. Unless we talk about it and unless people actually get to meet real perfumers and get to know us to see what's going on. Because we're prideful about the art that we create. These are like children to us, you know, like we spend time with this thing. I've worn this every day for 3 months straight, trying to figure it out and learn from it and see what I could do with it and how it evolves. We're not just giving that away to someone else and being like, oh yeah, sure, go make a copy of it. No problem. But my future dreams and plans for Xarmony is that I would like to see Xarmony reach a place where I can take the fragrances that I've made for each society or each person in history back to their hometowns. For instance, I created one for Ieyasu Tokugawa. The Tokugawa shogunate ended with the first prime minister, but the family line is still very much alive and they still have like land in Japan. I would love one day to be in Japan with my fragrance and hand it to their family. The same goes for someone like La Boussaint. I want to take that to France, where he was buried. I'd like to just be able to actually bond and communicate and give back to the cultures that influence my fragrances and honor the heroes that my brand represents. I see Xarmony growing to a point where we someday have a warehouse. We have like a factory, and I'd like to have a farm where we can distill some of our own mint oil. Different ingredients could come along the way, but you know where my mind's at right now. And I would just like to grow and give back jobs to the community, while also promoting and bringing love to different cultures. The thing about my brand is it's a very diverse brand. We're adding things from every culture, every section of the world on purpose, because that's what Genghis did. And Genghis is joining our brand too. But that's enough about me. We'll go into our next step. Your biggest triumph and your biggest failure, or the biggest trial that you had on your shoulders. This is an open discussion for both of you as well.
Well, I can jump in because I think I got mine ready, and I'll kind of blend my, because I didn't get a chance to answer the previous one. I'll kind of blend them together. And so for me, my
oh, I apologize, Teddy. Go ahead. No, take the first one first. I didn't realize
they're actually connected, so it's perfect. But I think really for me, I've always been relatively creative, but I think there's a difference between being a creative person and then actually being a creator. Like, you can be creative and like play a piece of music in an orchestra, but it's also been one thing to like create a new piece of music and then put it out in the world for it to be judged. I mean, they're both creative endeavors, but one of them requires a lot of nail biting. And for me, like, I just never found the thing in my life where I felt like I could express my creativity in a way that people would like really enjoy. And so I've had this whole other career. I really love what I'm doing. Oh, big jingle just appeared on my screen there.
We got the hanging lights. We got some gifts that came in. Thank y'all so much for the gifts.
Ooh, very nice. I still don't know a lot about live, so I'm like, I got to figure out what that all means.
Right, me too.
So for both of you, that actually translates to money that you can cash out on your PayPal.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Okay. Sweet. Well, I can put that into my bottle orders. But basically,
we can get some new ingredients, guys.
My goal is pretty simple. Is like, I love what I do, and I think everyone kind of dreams of having some cool career where they can just do whatever they want. But for me, it's really simple. Is I just really want to be able to produce something that people love enough that they're willing to buy. Right? It's just that, like, not only have I created something, but I've put it out in the world. I have my own brand, and then that some people are enjoying it, and that really is just bringing some beauty into the world, because I think we can all use a little bit more of that. And I think going into my greatest kind of achievement so far, like I've technically, my company has launched, I'm incorporated, all that. I got stuff arriving every day, but so far, a really big milestone for me, because I'm friendly with the folks at Ministry of Scent in San Francisco, and they invited me to bring my samples to like check them out. And that was a big nail biter for me, because I'd done some like focus groups and stuff, but it's like, Ministry of Scent, these people, they smell everything, like everything. They're just in the game. And I just got such incredible positive feedback. And it was, for me, that was like, I don't care if I launch my brand now, just the fact that like folks at like a renowned niche fragrance store were like raving about some stuff I made. I was like, I'm done. I don't even have to do this anymore. I'm just going to end it here. Like, even if the brand
best feeling in the world, man.
I'm good to go. So for me, that's like my big achievement right now.
I went through a similar experience when I went. So this is the first time that I had went to like a true niche spot. I met up with an influencer named Raf Sense during our Disney vacation, whenever my daughter was 2, I think, and we ended up going to the mall, and they had like a niche spot where they had like Diptyque, they had like Amouage, they had MFK. All of those brands. And we don't have any of those in my state. We don't have a niche store in Louisiana at all. I think there might be a place in New Orleans where we can see some of that, but not really. I looked it up before and I couldn't find where I could get any of the niche fragrances in my state. So while we were there, I happened to have some of my fragrances with me, and the person smelled my oud mint and just went crazy and got everybody from the back of the store to come check it out. The person happened to be the ambassador for the brand, so like it was pretty crazy. And I was like, yeah, here's my card. My name is Trill Noel. I'm a perfumer. This brand is Xarmony Perfumes, et cetera, et cetera. But the victory for me wasn't if they had contacted me or called me back. It was the fact that I sprayed something on an ambassador for another brand and they were like, oh my God, you made this? You know, like it's like you're impressed by this? Because as artists, we generally like, you know, we might feel that we've created our work of art the way that we want it. But none of us know how people are going to receive it ever. Like we don't know, oh, hey, I've made a hit. This is a hit single. You know, like we have no idea that the radio is going to play the song that I just made and it's going to be the next viral hit in America. Half of the time it's the song that takes over the charts is one that was just like they freestyled that in a coffee shop. They didn't even write it down. And it's the #1 song in America. It was like something on TikTok or something that went viral. But that's just how art is sometimes. And it was a testament whenever that happened. Same way you said, Teddy. I was like, well, I'm done. I've accomplished it. I had the same feeling. Now we'll go into the last section of our live.
How about Lauren? What's your? I'm sorry, not Lauren.
Oh yeah,
Chavalia. What's your?
I keep forgetting to ask both of you the questions. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. I was going to interject anyway. I was just letting you finish.
Yes, ma'am. Feel free to do so.
I'll start with my biggest accomplishment. I mean, I can't say biggest. I will just say an accomplishment that I am really proud of. For those that don't know, I am an educator by profession. I'm a certified EC12, which just means early childhood through 12th grade music educator. So I can teach. I can go to an elementary school and teach music, and I can go to a high school and teach music. I'm all levels certified. So I got to a point where
don't forget about the mother.
the what? Oh yeah, yeah. I'll get to
throw that in there because you're raising them boys.
Yes, yes. I'm a mother of twin boys that are homeschooled. They're actually here now. We have an agreement for them to be very quiet during this live, so they're expecting their reward afterwards. But I'm an educator by nature, so I like to just break things down. And I realized that not only were there disparities as far as perfumers that looked like me, but also at the educational level, the schools are very secluded or very exclusive. So, and I just had this thought, I was like, it would be great to see this open up, to see the chemistry side open up fragrance creation, even at the high school level as an elective. But I'll take college. You know, we could start at the college level and then work our way down. Well, fast forward in 2019, I connected with an HBCU. I won't say the name until they actually start to talk about this particular partnership. But I connected with this HBCU, and I was able to be a panelist talking to the undergrads about my journey, you know, like what we're doing now, but a different audience. So fast forward to now, I will actually be working with this HBCU because they have a cosmetics program that is newly launched, if you will, and I will be able to speak to a group of students in person. So education is very important to me, and being able to make things like perfumery accessible for those that are wanting to enter that field. So that is one of the accomplishments that I'm very proud of, is seeing this actually open up in the HBCU space. That way we can kind of balance out the numbers that are not very balanced right now. A challenge, or I guess a failure, if you will. I really don't look at things as failures. They're more like life lessons. So it's kind of hard for me to answer that in those particular terms, but I will say that there was a time just personally where I really thought I was done with Pink Mahoghany because of just life happening, burying a child.
I'm glad you didn't follow through with that.
Yeah. So the twins had a baby brother, and he passed away shortly after birth. And I just literally, in order for me to kind of protect my space or my feelings or my energy, I said, I'm not going to touch anything because it's not going to be pure right now because I'm grieving. So I literally just left it alone for a good 6 months. So it kind of ended up being a rebirth, which is why I say it's not really a failure. It was more of a metamorphosis of some sort because his transition actually helped me to create the aromatherapy side of my brand because I couldn't sleep. And I was tired of paying 3 times the amount for a 5 ml bottle of essential oils to put in my diffuser. And I was like, I have my own materials. Why don't I just make my own? So that's what kind of pushed me back into pink mahogany. So what could have been a very tumultuous situation and dark, I turned it into, I guess, alchemy, if you will, and really channeling the love that I have for their baby brother and saying, hey, I'm going to help others learn how to help their insomnia in a more natural way. So not necessarily a failure, but it was definitely a challenge because I had no desire to pick pink mahogany back up at that particular time. But, we have the passion, we love what we do. So it was going to keep calling me until I answered the call again in the form of a rebirth.
Well, hey, I just want to say I'm so sorry for your loss, and also just really happy that you
Yes.
found a way back to your passion too. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Blessings to you and your family as well. I didn't know that story existed until today. So thank you for sharing that with us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Now, on that note, my biggest failure, some people in the chat may know about this. Are you guys familiar with gamma octolactone?
I have some.
Okay. So I made Cairo 1. And I was going to use a lactone. We are going to make a milk bath in the city of Cairo to do the royal family. They're taking baths in milk. And we failed. I didn't look and realize that I didn't grab Delta and I grabbed the Gamma octolactone, and I put like 3 grams of butter basically in the fragrance. Nice. And so I it's this oud, saffron, spicy, hot butter fragrance now. It smells like mummified cheese. That was Cairo 1. And I didn't realize this until I sprayed it. Cause I was just making it, and I came up with my formula. This was back in the day, before I did something where I would test after each ingredient. I smell and test after each ingredient. Hadn't refined that process yet. So I had my formula, I added everything. And then I was like, okay, now we're going to spray it and test it out. And so I go and I spray it everywhere. I kid you not, guys. I ran to the shower so fast. I dropped the bottle on the ground. I didn't even do anything else. I didn't put it on. I just and then took off out of the room, got in the shower, washed everything off as best as I could. It smelled like I had been trapped inside of a tomb. So be very careful whenever you get into the lactonic ingredients. To anyone watching this, if you dive into perfumery, I'm telling you, butyl butyrate, gamma octolact, be very careful. It will smell like rancid cheese milk, baby vomit. That's what it smelled like.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So now, unless you guys have anything that you would like to take over for a second, take the floor and say, we can move into the Q&A, but you guys have the opportunity to speak if you'd like to before then.
I'm ready. How about you, Chavalia?
I'm ready.
Hopefully we didn't miss anything tonight. Thank you so much to everybody sending in gifts. I appreciate it, everyone. I am not doing the AI thing today. But yeah, we love it. Keep evolving. So we're going to open the floor for Q&A. I will just be picking some of the comments that come through, and I'll hold up a card, and that person will answer your comment. Teddy's going to be the red. Chavalia is going to be the white. So go ahead, guys. The floor is open for you to ask questions about perfumery, fragrance. Please be mindful. We're not going to be talking about brands that exist or things from the industry with specific names for the most part. Alrighty, guys. Let's see. We got we got a lot of gifts coming in. Uh, Teddy, when can I sample your stuff? When are you releasing the frags?
All right, I got this. So uh, I haven't put a date out. So this is like my passion project. I mean, obviously, in my wildest dreams, I'm a world famous perfumer. I'm traveling around. I got my own brand. It's my full-time job, but it's my passion project, right? And so I've got everything on order. And what I'm really hoping to do here is in about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, I'll have a soft launch of samples because I'd originally wanted to launch with full bottles, but like I really don't like people blind buying, and I kind of want people to get a chance to get their nose on it first. And so I'll do a soft launch with samples in like sort of the like mid-May or so, and then or maybe early May, and then I'm probably going to do it like really really discounted, like you basically just pay shipping because I want people to get a chance to smell it. Hopefully y'all don't hate it. And then assuming that's not a horrible disaster, and all of my supplies come in on time, I'm really hoping to have bottles available by the first week of June. So that's my goal. But again, if I hit any snags here or there, if I get some supplier delays, I'm just going to take my time and just update folks so that I'm not doing anything half baked. You know what I mean?
All right. Thank you so much, Teddy. We have a question from Cajun Caveman. How long did it take you till you thought you made a fragrance that you would consider selling for the first time?
I'll answer that in two parts. The very first fragrance that I did create was in 2011. Pink Mahogany was established in 2005. So basically from '05 to 2011, I just took myself to school. I'm completely self-taught. And it's called French Cuffs. And French Cuffs took me about 6 months, though it's very, to my nose, it's simple, it's straightforward in its ingredients. However, I wanted to make sure I was overthinking a lot. So that's a lot of the 6 months, a lot of where the 6 months came from. Now, fast forward to how I formulate today. It's my brand has evolved more from technicality, and by technicality, I'm meaning feeling like I have to have a fragrance that's in this category or this in this olfactory
Yes.
profile. Now I create simply based on my life experiences of feeling. Um, I'm open to all inspiration. So when a fragrance is completed, when I feel like it's completed, is when it evokes the feeling that I am trying to convey. So, for example, the most recent fragrance in the collection is based on the history of my third generation grandfather, Nettie Williams. And it's complex. It's one of the most complex fragrances that I've created. And when I went through several trials that I'm looking at beakers behind me, but I knew that it was ready when it evoked the feeling. You know, this is third generation,
Correct.
so I did not have a chance to meet him. So it was more about, does this embody who I feel like he was or would have been to me had he still been alive? Does this exude, just me looking at pictures, does this exude his character? I was given some stories about him, how astute he was, how very poised he was, even in his dress. So once that fragrance communicated it to me, then I said, okay, let me let my family smell it because they're going to be the true test and the unbiased. My family does not, they don't love everything that I create. So I wanted to let them smell it as this is almost like a family heirloom or tribute. And when they smelled it and they were like, oh my gosh, this smells like Grandpa Ned. That's when I knew I was done, even though, you know, as an artist, we feel like, let me just add a little bit more. And there was an aspect in Nettie Williams where I work intuitively and I get these spiritual nudges, if you will. And I just instantly felt I need to add more leather. Now, leather is one that I feel like can very much overpower a fragrance, but I just felt intuitively add just a little more leather, and I did. And that was what made the fragrance what it is now. So that's how I knew it was ready. In short, was when it gave that feeling.
Thank you. Thank you. I have to say, Teddy, do you design in such a way too?
I mean, for me, when I create it, I, I I always joke. I wait for the muse to speak to me from the ether, right? Like it is like a memory. Like one of the fragrances I'm releasing in the summer called Summer and Love. It's based on this salad my wife makes. She makes a caprese salad, but she substitutes the tomatoes with ripe peach, and it creates this beautiful like peach, like kind of rich, creamy basil smell. And so I knew I wanted to recreate the spirit of that. One of them was an accident where I was working on a chocolate patchouli and my daughter smeared banana all over me. And I was like, this smells really good. I got to make this. And sometimes it's just like, I want to do a technical study of a fougere and then try to make it more traditionally unisex, right? So I think it's wherever I just feel the creative juices flowing, whether it's a memory, whether it's an experience, or whether it's just like, I'm fascinated by an idea and I want to see if I can execute it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's kind of like what Chavalia said a second ago. I have to live through the person's eyes when I make a fragrance for them. So like many of the followers of the Empire that are in this live, they watched me like literally live through Ieyasu for weeks on end. Every night out of the stream, I would be telling stories of Ieyasu's life, what I thought he envisioned for the future of Japan, the different battlefields that he may have fought on, different battles that brought his name to prominence, stories about his loyalty, stories about all of the different things that he had to go through. So it was like I felt Ieyasu's presence, or like I had done justice to the character that I was walking through whenever I made Ieyasu number 4. The first 3 were fragrances that Trill wanted. When I got to number 4, it was like, this is what Ieyasu would have wanted, at least from my studies. You know, I have no idea to know exactly what he would have wanted, but based on the region, the flora and fauna that grow in that region, I looked at all of the different things that existed in his lifetime from his birth to his death. He grew up in a fishing village next to the shoreline, so we added a seashore in the fragrance. We have some marine and ozonic notes. It's not that hard to create a seashore standing on a beach next to the sandy waves. But we also needed to get the Japanese sea salt. That's not that hard to get either. Then there's Hinoki cypress. Those trees were growing wildly in that area. And the different fruits that were around his springtime were also used in the fragrance. But Ieyasu himself planted mandarin trees in his castle. So the highlight of the fragrance was mandarin. And the luxurious treat that people during the Edo period ate was a certain type of sweet melon. It's closer to like a honeydew style melon. So we made that in the fragrance. And the Shimuzu Hakudo peach was the type that they had around that time in the fragrance. Now I have to build an accord for that. There's no like extract of that fruit. Most fruits don't have a direct like molecule or synthetic. But like I felt in a very similar way, you know, like the juices are flowing, but I don't arrive until it's completed the painting that I had in mind, or it's satisfied what I'm trying to bring to life fully. And that process changed since I started. Like when I first started, my accord was where I felt that. Now the full fragrance is where I feel that. You know, like my mind expanded, the palette expanded. And so I feel like that's something that really helped. Do we have any other questions coming in from the audience?
I'm taking a look here. Scrolling up a little bit.
Texas, you're free to mute anyone if necessary. Thank you so much.
Taking a look. I got a question up above. Somebody was asking earlier what inspired us to become perfumers. That's a fun one.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that one. Thank you for finding it. We had quite a few comments coming through. For me, I always wanted a perfume line someday, but I didn't know this was the way that it would happen. You know, like I was in school for film and music and drama and painting and digital art, VFX, computer engineering, game design. I figured one of those facets would have brought me to a level where, you know, I would have had like a huge business or something of my own. And from there, you know, you have an image, and with that image, you go and you do this, you do that, you do that. So I figured one of those things would have brought me somewhere. Many of you have seen my acting talents on some of our skits that we've done in the past, as you guys know. And many of you have seen some of my digital artwork from the films that are on my YouTube channel. And what ended up happening, though, is I was starting my own film company. The hurricane hit. I lost all of my equipment. I lost all of my cameras. I lost all of my software, my hardware, everything. And that didn't happen anymore. I abandoned the film company. At the same time, I was studying perfumery. Like, that was just my side project, passion, hobby. As Teddy said earlier, it was like a labor of love that I was doing in the background. And I had planned to launch it. I had already registered my LLC before the hurricane hit. And we were getting close to the launch time. But I had seen that I would have had a year to do it from the day I registered my LLC. It didn't happen that way. So I dove into it, and that's what came next. Teddy, what about you?
For me, I think my career very much took the more analytical kind of finance route. And then I'd always been really try to be creative. Like, I love music. I've played multiple instruments, and I just had never found anything that I could create something really original for, that I felt like was maybe worth anybody's time. And then I've always been really fascinated by smell. And I didn't really realize this, but it turns out I have a really, really sensitive nose. And I've been collecting fragrances since high school, and it really just became a slow descent into madness, where the collecting turned into a bigger collection, turned into learning about perfumers, turned into learning about how fragrances are structured. And then I got to a point where I was literally watching a video of I could either start buying stinky ouds that were $1,000, or learning perfumery to go deeper. And I was like, I'm going to learn perfumery now. And then it just kept going, and it turned out I was pretty good at it. And it's just been a lot of fun. It's been a creative outlet, and it's just gone honestly a lot further than I thought, because now I have a lab in my house. So a slow descent into madness is how I got into it.
I kind of fell into the same rabbit hole, but it was more of after I established the brand that I went back and started picking up all of the things that I avoided when I first got into the space. Just because I wanted to make sure that my footprint was not the same as someone else's. And in doing that, I really did establish that unique footprint. Because I know for some people, if you're not in the artist space, you're not coming from an artistic realm, you'll just do exactly what the list is telling you. You'll make the demo formula the way it's saying, you'll do everything the way it's saying, you'll create the same things that already exist. And for me, I want to do the exact opposite. Someone had asked about the sample sets, so they're here. Our sample sets have one sample in each one of these boxes, and they are 2 ml. As soon as you sign up on the website, an email will be sent your way to get 25% off. You have to copy and paste the code that goes into your email. You have to create an account to get that discount code sent, of course. The code will say new member dash and then some numbers. You have to copy the whole thing, and your sample set will be 25% off. So we appreciate it. Chavalia, what is your take on that?
Like I said, my background is education, but I got to a point where I started researching, much like Teddy, about the stories behind the fragrances that I was purchasing. I started on Lucky Scent. One of my family members told me about it, and it led me down the rabbit hole, because at the time, they were the only website that I knew of that actually told the story about the perfumer, or had a tab where you could click to learn more information, as opposed to just reading the list of notes. So that really intrigued me, and I would stay up for hours knowing I needed to get up and possibly work on lesson plans. But it drew me in, and the more I learned about perfumers, and the more I learned about the stories, I connected with that, and I was like, oh my gosh, what if I can just start very small and just start trying to create my own stories, not for anyone else. Initially, I was just going to do this for myself, because around this time, one of my favorite fragrances that I won't name had been reformulated, and I went to purchase it. I did not like it when it was on the skin. Of course, the assistant could not tell me what was going on, and I was like, what is this? I didn't really understand all of the nuances of fragrance. So it's been a lifelong journey. I say lifelong, but since 2005, of really diving in. And once I started making trial blends myself using what I call the Jean Carl's method, learning about accords and really diving in. The love for perfumery, not just fragrance and just wearing them, and my growing stash of samples, but the actual love for perfumery grew to a point where I said, okay, you know what? At first, I said, I'm just going to create using naturals. We know that didn't last long because it's
Yeah, that
very
didn't last
limiting.
long either. That
Yeah,
was the
yeah,
first thing that I got. I got
yeah,
over the
yeah.
hill fast.
Yeah, but it did make me more conscious about what I use. And I had some friends that had asthma or had really bad allergies, and they were like, "Well, I see what you're doing. Can you send me some samples?" And I was scared because I was like, "I don't want this to trigger your asthma or anything because I can't make any medical claims." But I sent her samples anyway because she loved fragrance. She just had never found anything that didn't trigger her allergies and asthma. So I sent her a couple samples from what I call the OG collection. They will be resurfacing pretty soon by way of a subscription box. But I sent the samples to her and I just kind of waited. I didn't ask and say, hey, how are those samples working for you? Because honestly, I was nervous. And she reached out to me and said, oh my gosh, your fragrances are the only perfumes that I have been able to wear in forever. What did you do? And I was like, I didn't think I did anything special other than just being conscious of what I'm using. At that particular time, I realized that I had a sensitivity to phthalates. And the way that I found that
Yeah.
out was through a plug-in that I had no idea what phthalates were. I didn't understand why I was coughing every time I used this plug-in. So that led me down the rabbit hole. So it was like a simultaneous happening that was going on with Lucky Scent diving down that rabbit hole and then having my own personal experiences and saying, well, hey, you can try what I've created. And if you like it, then maybe I'm onto something. And once that was affirmed, then I said, okay, well, let me make a little bit more. So it just kind of grew organically over time. But
And
my
then you were just like,
educational
this is my
background,
career now.
yeah, yeah, it now was a slow progression. I went back to teaching 3 times because, as you all know, if you're using quality materials, this is not a cheap profession.
It is
We're
not.
not
No.
using fragrance oils over here. This is our own
I
accords,
just
our own. Yeah,
I literally just spent $2,000 in 5 minutes. I don't know how to feel about that.
I can relate.
Right. That sounds about
I
right.
can relate.
Don't know how to feel
I can
about that
relate.
still.
And then I
Yeah.
know
Oh
talking
man.
about formulation, I saw in the chat we had a couple questions. Like one of them
Yes,
was,
I was about to go and get those for you. We had one that said, would you recommend a new perfumer to immediately start working with synthetics? Uh, Either one of y'all could take that, but my answer on that would be a no from me. Teddy or Chevalier, what would y'all say on that?
I would say no as well. I think it's important to train your nose. I would
Yes.
say in naturals first, so that you can, because when we consume something, it's a different experience from when you're smelling it neat. Neat just means you're smelling it without any dilution.
Without any
Like, yeah.
dilution.
Essential oils, I would say you can smell them because we diffuse them at 100%. So just dilute it in water when you put the drops in. So you can take the cap off and just wave it around the nose. So I would say essential oils and natural essences and get out in nature, botanical gardens, go outside and just reacclimate. As kids, we probably did this, played outside to know, just to our heart's content. To me, when in my childhood, it seems like the days were longer. So just really getting back outside and smelling weeds, smelling leaf, picking up a leaf and smelling it, getting the earthiness from
Oh
that.
yes.
Going outside
Smelling,
after it
smelling,
rains.
smelling geosmin changed my mind about everything.
Yes.
Like whenever oh wait, speaking of that, Teddy, there's a question that you had pulled up earlier. Was it a different one?
well, I was going to say, I'll be the contrarian here, and I'll say that I think people should absolutely start with synthetics. And I don't think they should only start with synthetics. I think that, like in my guide, I generally recommend, like, if you're in the States, there's an aroma chemical kit from Perfumer's Apprentice, and then there's a natural kit as well. And because the
Yes.
reality is, like, you could spend a whole year just like learning, like naturals. It'll be very expensive, but also like modern perfumery uses very little naturals. Like
Yes.
if you're smelling the store, like, there's very little pure natural extracts in those fragrances, even in high end niche stuff. And the reality is too, like, it's kind of like, if you focus too much on the naturals, it's like trying to learn how to paint, but like leaving out like most of the color palette. And so if you're going to dive in, like,
Yes.
that would be my advice, is don't only get synthetics, but I think
Hmm.
absolutely getting synthetics along with some naturals is really good, because I mean, it's hard to learn how to build a jasmine accord if you don't know what jasmine smells like naturally. But then again, like part of building complete modern fragrances is the skill and the knowledge of synthetics, which you unfortunately can't really get just from going in nature. You have to you have to buy coumarin, you have to buy ethyl maltol.
Yes. So I can attest and agree to that actually. For me, I did naturals for probably like half a year before I even moved on to anything else. And then I had a few synthetics, which I was able to find on Amazon back then. They were from Chem Labs that used to have stores on Amazon. I don't think they do anymore. But they're also the ones that were on the TGSC page that many of you guys know. But they had them available on Amazon, and I had like Amazon gift cards. So I bought my first synthetics from there. And then I had my first synthetic haul probably a year in from Perfumer's Apprentice. And I got a bunch of synthetic ingredients that had nothing to do with any of the naturals that I had bought and learned, which was my mistake. So like if you do go with naturals, whatever you learn, go get the synthetics for them as well. That way you have a comparison to figure out, oh, this is a molecule that gives vanilla versus actual vanilla. And they're not the same by any means, because coumarin can give vanilla. Coumarin is not a vanilla though. So like you start learning about the difference in tones, the difference in like, I guess I use sound to talk about fragrance a lot. It's like you learn about the difference in the harmonies. You learn about the difference in the tones between one synthetic ingredient versus this natural versus this absolute versus this tincture. And they all have a different sound. It's basically like a bass guitar versus an acoustic guitar versus, I don't know, the other types of guitars.
And and Tyler just put a question in the chat, and actually, I don't know how you all feel about this, but I think it's a common misconception that naturals are easy to work with.
They are not.
It's not because when if you take like pure jasmine or like a rose extract, there's this really common misconception that natural materials are somehow have less chemicals. No.
Right.
Like a rose extract has like hundreds, like 5, 7. We're discovering new chemicals in rose extract like every year. And so it's actually very difficult and very limiting to use only naturals, because if you start blending a couple of naturals together, you get so many overlapping aroma chemical compounds that you get mud. And so it's actually
you like this murky, muddy thing that you can't tell what's going on. It's not smelling like tones aren't coming through.
So if you're starting with synthetics, you can actually very carefully control what's being added, where when you're adding naturals together, you have